Here in the vibrant city of Lleida in Spain, history has always been made. A proudly Catalonian centre, it's witnessed more than its fair share of significant events down through the centuries. But now its skies are set to host an historic sporting occasion as an air race makes its groundbreaking return to European shores. So the scene is set for Lleida Alghera Airport to host round 2 of the Air Race 1 World Cup. A field of 12 race aircraft and their pilots lining up to bring their spectacular brand of pylon racing to thousands of spectators flocking to this beautiful spot within sight of the Pyrenees. Just a couple of short weeks ago, it was Monastir in Tunisia which hosted the opening round of the series and indeed the first ever air race on the African continent. Silver class winner Philip Goforth from the USA won a grueling back and forth battle against Justin Philipsen, who took a close second. Third place finisher Des Hart, who won the silver class in 2014, couldn't quite overcome some engine difficulties. The gold final in Monastir was certainly no disappointment after some of the most exciting and competitive racing the sport has seen. Tom Richard on Sweden came to North Africa with his new plane Hot Stuff, a purpose-built one-off design racer with impossibly sleek lines and a beautiful gull-wing profile, built especially for the highly competitive race scene in the USA. Tom, a hugely experienced race pilot, was nevertheless up against some impressive competition. Jay Jones of Colorado Springs in the USA fought hard in his distinctive yellow quad nickel, while another American pilot, Mike Mundell, caused an early upset as he challenged for the lead right from the off. His square-wing Cassett pushing the more modern planes to their absolute limits. Jay Jones brought his 17 years of experience to bear in battling with Mundell for second place, and after a battle that lasted virtually throughout the race, Jones and the yellow plane took second place with Mundell in third. Steve Temple started the race late due to a fueling problem and was left playing an unwinnable game of catch-up, meaning it was Tom Richard from Sweden who flew across the finish line ahead of the pack with an average overall speed of 373 kilometers an hour.
A few weeks ago, the first heat race in Tunisia for Air Race 1, we managed to end up on top of the podium with the airplane right behind me. And we're hoping to try to do that again here in Spain.
And Tunisia was incredible. The people were so friendly and they were so enthusiastic. You know, the support from the fans on the day, never seen anything like that. The course was incredible, and the hosting by the airport authorities, you know, they really got on board with the event, and it was great to see.
But I think the climax of the competition is going to be here, because that's the event where most of the pilots of the World Cup can actually be. So here is going to be like the real show.
We are so excited to be here at the Lleida Alghera Airport in Catalonia. It's a fantastic location. We're going to have a fantastic race this week. It's going to be incredible. Actually, Lleida is going to be part of a series of races this year. So whereas last year we did one event, this year it's 3 events. We were in Tunisia recently, we're in Lleida today, and we're going to be in Reno, Nevada very soon.
The course remains constant. Planes reach speeds of up to 400 kilometers an hour around tight 5-kilometer laps on a circuit just 1.5 kilometers end to end.
The race course here, the circuit for this air race in Lleida, is actually quite challenging because it's a perfect location to have an air race. The circuit is laid out really, really well. The airport has the space, of course, that has the facilities. The pilots are now a little bit more accustomed to it, but it's really interesting because the ground and the terrain is quite varied. And we've got the pylons. The race is around 6 pylons, of course, and they're in really challenging locations.
I raced here last year. That was my first time ever racing as a rookie, and I was fortunate enough to win the silver here. So it already has a special place in my heart. You know, the first time I raced, so coming back here is fantastic.
This is my first time here in Lleida. It's a beautiful city, a beautiful countryside. I'm so excited.
Catalunya is absolutely stunningly beautiful, and to be performing for these people of Catalunya is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. It's just absolutely spectacular.
It's a beautiful view. The landscape is wonderful here. It's actually hard to focus sometimes on the race because it's so beautiful around here with the Pyrenees in the background and the farmland. It's very nice.
By far the prettiest race course I've ever been on. It's a little challenging and in the way it's laid out, but it makes for great racing.
The biggest challenge is going to be the heat and trying to keep the motors at some type of reasonable operating temperature.
I think the biggest challenge for me is coming here by myself, keeping my airplane running. It's broken right now, as you can see. The cowling is open, but with the limited spare parts and resources that we have here, that's my biggest challenge.
Passing is always difficult. You need enough speed to get past someone, otherwise it turns into a bit of a battle. Around this course, there are some birds, and you know it gets very bumpy and turbulent. In the heat, it's going to be very hot. A lot of people have had overheating engine problems already.
The first lap I went out there, I had a difficult time trying to find pylon 4. I think I've got it all straightened out to where I can navigate to it now, but that's the biggest challenge for me anyway.
These purpose-built racing airplanes, they're amazingly responsive. You're constantly touching the rudder pedals just a little to fly as straight as you can to make the smallest, smoothest control inputs you can, while being ready to absolutely jump on the controls when you get upset by wake turbulence from the airplane in front of you.
Well, time now to run through those planes and pilots in reverse order of speed through the heats. Bernard Morici from France in an MP205 Bussard has been racing for over 10 years and works for Airbus Industries. He raced here in Spain last year and knows the conditions well. Number 11, Des Hart from Scotland blew the opposition away in the silver class here last year despite his lack of experience, so he's looking to push his way back up to the gold final for this year. Stanislas Dameron, another of the French pilots who came down to Lleida for the inaugural race in 2014. He's had to leave his own plane behind this week though, so the Casut 3M Kermit is his machine of choice. Tom Watkins from Canada is fresh to the series but has a long history of involvement in Formula One air racing. His plane, Puda, has had reliability issues this weekend, so he may be struggling. And finally, in the silver class, Guy Charot is the fastest of the French Casut racers and was second behind Des Hart last year, so he'll be hoping his 12 years of racing give him the edge. Well, up now to the gold racers, and at the back of the grid we'll find Dave "Homie" Holmgren from Utah in the USA, who flies commercial airliners as a day job and is in his first full year of racing. He's preceded by Michael Mundell from Ohio, who in his Casut Second Wind won Rookie of the Year at the Reno races in Nevada in 2013. Possibly the fastest of the largely stock Casut planes is Margaret June, flown by Kent Casals from Florida in the USA and a regular member of the Formula One crew in his home country. Well, there's very little of Quad Nickel, the distinctive yellow plane of Jay Jones, that remains unmodified after 17 years of constant improvements, and it's paid off, giving him second place here last year and a place among the top 6 racers in the USA. Steve Temple, also from the USA and an airline pilot living in Germany. His beautiful looking plane Madness, a Boyd GR7, dates back to the late 80s, and its speed and his 15,000 plus hours are a formidable combination. Christian Guillet of France is a professor of mechanical engineering. Having designed and built his amazing plane Arletty 2 from scratch, he took the gold class apart last year in Spain and sent the American racers home with much to think about. But Tom Richard thinks he has the answer. A Swedish national living in the USA, he's out to nail the Formula One opposition with this beautiful Ruberi Special built for Reno in 2012 and now in prime position to take the honours in 2015.
Live it up this December on Edge Sport. The title will be decided, and only one can write their name in history. Live World Surf League 2015, Billabong Pipe Masters. An annual event showcasing the world's best skateboarders. It's the South African Skateboard Revolution. Skateboarding World Championships at Kimberley Diamond Cup 2015. Breathtaking stunts, adrenaline-filled atmosphere, an intense and grueling competition not to be missed. Night of the Jumps Gdansk 2015. Gdansk, Poland. The athletics, the trails, the fans. Crankworx celebrates the epic endurance, anointed by dirt, powered by passion. Crankworx World Tour 2015. Live it up this December on Edge Sport.
First things first, we're taking something that started in Whistler and spreading the good times. We're headed here, then here, then here. The athletes, the trails, the super fans, and the next generation of mountain bikers.
Are you ready, people? Oh! Cork 720, let's go!
Pack your bike and go.
Time now to look at highlights of the final races after 3 days of hard-fought qualifiers and heats. Stan Dameron of France took pole position on the grid for the silver final. His violently green-playing Kermit always a favourite with the crowds. Lining up behind him was another pair of formidable Frenchmen, Bernard Morici in the all-red Bussard number 25 and Guy Chiraud in number 31, the red and white cassette. Dameron got off to a scorching start with Kermit and opened up a reasonable margin between himself and the battle for second position. Guy Chiraud trying every trick in the book to squeeze past Bernard Morici. Chiraud eventually found his way below and past Morici, and the chase was on. A moving green target was in his sights, and it wasn't long before Stan Dameron found Guy Chiraud all over the back of Kermit, and his hold on the lead was short-lived. While having been knocked back into third place, Bernard Morici was not given the chance to relax. Within very, very short order, he was being handed down by the Scottish Terrier Des Hart in his white plane Heart Attack, while the American rookie Tom Watkins was also gaining pace as the race went on. Well, the Scot eventually found his way past the red plane of the Frenchman, and Des was given comparatively open skies to chase down Stan Dameron in second, and possibly even the leader himself, Guy Chiraud. Meanwhile, Tom Watkins' improving pace was unfortunately interrupted, and he retired from the race with engine issues. That left the attention focused entirely on the battle for second, with Des Hart niggling away at the gaps either side of Stan in Kermit, until eventually he found his way through. Last year's silver class winner was determined not to let his title slip away without a fight. But it wasn't to be. The Frenchman's advantage was just too large, and with an average speed of 326.44 kilometres an hour, Guy Chiraud took the win in the silver final, Des Hart of Scotland second with 306.07. Guy Chiraud's win gives him a ticket through to the gold final, while Des Hart of Scotland and Stan Dameron of France simply enjoy the glow of silver and bronze. So quite obviously no punches pulled in the silver final as the week moves towards its finale, the gold final, where competition would be at its hottest.
The competition, oh, it's great. There's about 4 or 5 airplanes that are faster than me, but my strategy is to try and be as consistent as possible.
Oh, it's much stiffer here because the Frenchmen have showed up. Now it's going to get a lot more exciting. We have one competitor within half a mile an hour of my speed.
Well, yes, for me the competition is going to be far more difficult this year. Last year I enjoyed being the fastest and I could maybe relax just a little. But this year there are some very fast planes and pilots, and I'll have to try very, very hard to beat them. Tom Richard and Steve Temple are 2 extremely fast pilots with very good planes. And that makes this year very difficult for me.
Well, you know Tom Richard flying hot stuff. His airplane is amazing. And then the French racer, Christian in Arletty 2, is that close. His airplane is just as fast as hot stuff, and it will be a race decided by pilot skill.
It is great. It really stepped up over last year with coming of Tom and hot stuff. and Christian with number 6. Steve's got his plane running a little better. And so it's the 4 of us, I feel, are the cream of the crop, the ones that are really duking it out.
Time then for the gold final here in Lleida. 7 planes lined up in order. I found they finished in the semi-final. Plus we've got Guy Charot, winner of the silver final, bringing up the rear of this 8-plane grid. As the green flag signals the start of the race here in Spain. The action already underway as Steve Temple closest to the camera there, getting ever so slightly sketchy as the tail picks up. But no issues for the American as they all concentrate on building up the power as quickly as they possibly can. Jay Jones in the yellow quad nickel number 45, the first to leave the tarmac quite clearly as they all take to the air in rapid order. On board now with Tom Richard in hot stuff, as you can see. Jay Jones in the yellow plane powering on through, dropping slightly as he goes for the line through the first curve, banking hard with Tom Richard tight on his tail, but if anything the Swedish pilot dropping back ever so slightly. As back on board we go with Jay as he lines up for the back straight. The red string on the canopy, a turbulence marker. The yellow Kasuch showing some incredible pace in this opening lap. As you can see from the gap he's opened up on Tom Richard there in second place. And we've got 2 of the Kasuchs dicing with one another there. Dave Holmgren in last lap player holding off Mike Mundell in number 33 second win. That's the battle for 6th place in the current order. Up front, that's Tom Richard in second place, chasing Joe Jones. While behind him, that group is led by Steve Temple in third. Christian Guillet in Arletty 2, going high through the curve, trying to find the pace to get past number 99, Kent Casals, who's currently 4th and taking the lower line. Steve Temple in the Boyd GR7 Panther Madness, throttle wide open down the straight, trying to keep in touch with Tom Richard there in second place. Number 99, Kent Casals, trying to keep up. And there's Mike Mundell and Dave Holmgren in 2 more of the Kasuchs in 6th and 7th place. But this is where the action really is. Tom Richard reeling Jay Jones back in. That sleek one-off racer slicing through the air and reeling the yellow plane and back in. Tom Richard clearly into the lead now, as behind in third place it's Steve Temple, who's now coming under pressure from the Frenchman Christian Guillet, swarming all over the back of the Boyd GR7 of Temple, going for the high line through the outside of the corner as Temple stays low. But Guillet wants to get the slingshot down the straight to get past the American. As we go now for a brief trip on board with the distinctively gull-winged hot stuff of Tom Richard, the current race leader and the plane with the best pace through the weekend that we've seen so far. Steve Temple still in third with Guillet up above on his tail. A beautiful looking plane still, this GR7, getting on for 30 years old, but still up there on the pace. Tom Richard in hot stuff, showing now that he really is in a class of his own. Only Christian Guillet able to get anywhere near the Swede, but he's still struggling in this final, trying to find a way past Steve Temple and Jay Jones. And at the back of the field, these little slab wing Kasuchs are designed dating all the way back to the 50s, but still the backbone of Formula One racing. Outpaced by around 25 miles an hour by the fastest of the planes here today, but still hugely entertaining to watch as the battles go on between those 4 precious places. A gorgeous profile there presented by the distinctive gull wings of Hot Stuff, the newest and most innovative of the planes flying here today in this final. But there's the move, Christian Guillet. He's been taking the high line through the early stages, trying to keep out of the turbulence, building up his pace, and now it's come to fruition as he dives down ahead of Jay Jones and into second place, heading for that clean air, which means he'll take the faster, tighter lines from now on as he starts the really hard work of trying to chase down Tom Richard up at the front. This Arletty 2, the plane we saw debut here in Lleida last year to such stunning effect. Tom Richard actually flew against the Frenchman here, but he was in a borrowed plane, just didn't have the pace to get anywhere near him. And the Frenchman, the dominant force throughout the entire weekend of that racing back in 2014. The red and white plane of Guy Charot bringing up the rear. But it's Christian Guillet twitching a little as he banks through the curve. A huge amount of work for all these pilots trying to hold a clean line, constantly adjusting everything available to them, working against the turbulence. And there, another shot of the back marker, Guy Charot, just showing the contrast in those wing shapes. The stock Kasuch 3M with the squared off stubbies, the fast planes with the long sleek wing shapes, almost glider-like some of them. Well, Tom Richard's sleek-looking wings might bring the gain in terms of overall speed, but they're also a lot more flexible and they'll make the pilot work twice as hard to gain those extra few miles an hour. Quite disconcerting too, but rest assured they're tested to breaking point during the design process, and these are operating well within their comfortable limits. As there we can see Tom Richard lapping Guy Charot now as we find ourselves 2/3 or so through this gold final. Just 2 laps left. So Tom will be looking for the safe lines through as he starts to come up against the back markers more and more. The turbulence, a real danger for these pilots. Still in 3rd place, Jay Jones in the distinctively yellow quad nickel defends against Steve Temple. On board with Jay, no sign of Steve just yet. You can see just how far ahead Christian Guillet is now in 2nd. A huge gap of 15 seconds between the Frenchmen, with Tom Richard in the lead though. Kent Cassell's coming under pressure from Mike Mundell. This is the battle for 5th place as these 2 closely comparable planes get stuck into the final stages of the race. On board now with Dave Holmgren back in 7th as he concentrates on his own race. He'll also be keeping a wary eye out for Tom Richard as the leader carves through the pack. And there is the distinctive shape of Hot Stuff. Tom Richard at the controls. Christian Guillet safe in 2nd place, but as you can see from the onboard shot, experiencing quite a bit of turbulence himself. Tom Richard just about to make the lapping move on board with the Swede as all that superior speed sweeps him past. Keeping high, keeping well out of the turbulence. On board now with Jay Jones in quad nickel as he laps Guy Charot in the red and white plane low down to his left. The American defending his 3rd position against Steve Temple, who's doggedly chased him all the way. Indeed, there you saw just how close Steve Temple is. The red and white Boyd GR7 steadily closing the gap down on the yellow Kessel. The one red wingtip identifying Steve Temple as he too goes past the back marker. And that's Cassell still holding off Mundell. Going high around the outside, hoping to find a way past in clean air. Trying to gain the height that'll give them the speed down the straights. As Steve Temple chases a bigger prize, he's got very little of this race left, but he's got the speed to catch Jay Jones and earn himself a place on the podium. Mundell dives low, using the speed he's gained from all that height. A real trade-off this as the pilots desperately try to find the tiniest advantage. Cassell sticks with the low line through the curve as again Mundell gains the height. Steve Temple too keeping it as low as he possibly can. He's got the yellow plane of Jay Jones in his sights now. But the overtaking move is still a little way off as we go on board quad nickel. The US pilot who'll be checking over his shoulder to see where his fellow American is, knowing full well he's under threat. And Ken Cassell successfully held off Mike Mundell despite all those efforts. As Tom Richard in Hot Stuff, the race leader, approaches them with an easy 20 miles an hour advantage. Wisely stays well and truly clear of the 2 Cassets. You've seen the battle they've been having, and Tom knows just how much they'll be concentrating on that. So his job is to get past safely and quickly. Well, the race leader on his last lap, and that was the last move that may have threatened his lead. So it's pretty safe to say that we are looking at our winner now here in Spain. Mike Mundell again tries to find a way past, but unless he's got a new trick up his sleeve, then exactly the same will happen again. Cassell stays low, keeps the speed. As Hot Stuff, piloted by Tom Richard of Sweden, crosses the line to finish and climbs steeply away from the race line to show that's it, race done. Christian Guillet, 20 or so seconds behind the winner, banks through his final turn, and he too will be safe across the line in 2nd place. But this is what Jay Jones had been worrying about for the past 3 or 4 laps. He kept Steve Temple at bay all the way down to the line, but just at the 11th hour, Temple hammers down from high in the final curve, carries the speed to pull down past quad nickel and steal 3rd place from under the nose of Jay Jones. Drama right the way down to the line. And so confirmation, Tom Richard takes the win here in Spain, gaining another maximum point score from the round, with Christian Guillet in 2nd and Steve Temple working hard to earn himself 3rd in the dying seconds of the race. Nothing guaranteed though at this point, 1 more round to go, but the overall points table shows Tom Richard's lead to be far from unassailable. The podium for the silver final, topped by the popular French pilot Guy Charot, flanked by Des Hart of Scotland and Stan Dameron of France. While the gold podium is that of Tom Richard of Sweden, Christian Guillet of France and Steve Temple of the USA. The final round now moves on to Reno in the USA. Join us for that soon.